You're in for some elegant schooling of a woke activist as the woke left keeps trying to change the foundations of society through cancel culture and forced adoption of new pronouns. More people are beginning to realize the dangers of this phenomenon and openly criticizing such attempts. That's what happened when the British author Douglas Murray went on a debate with the Dutch politician Sylvana Simons. Things didn't turn out well for Sylvana as the Brit continued to dismantle the fallacy she was making and providing sound arguments, but before I delve deeper into it, watch the clip.
Very often we cancel people, destroy people for saying something that everyone thought until 24 hours ago. And we're making up and evolving a lot of our ethics and I'd say the metaphysics as we go along. And it's very confusing. However, I think we can identify certain trends that are going on. And one of them is that there are a set of what I describe as tripwire issues, which any journalist, citizen, absolutely anybody, if they just nick one of these tripwires with their foot, can find causes total career implosion. They, broadly speaking, there are a few others, but I say they come down roughly to gay, everything to do with women, particularly relations between the sexes, everything to do with race, and absolutely everything to do with trans. Now, I'm very conscious, by the way, that a lot of this, I just throw this out for, particularly for English speakers in the audience, or all English speakers, but all people from English-speaking nations, that a lot of these phenomena at the moment seem to me to be particularly prevalent in Britain, America, Canada, Australia. A number of other countries, particularly across Europe, do have bits of it, but including France, but almost nowhere, actually nowhere as virulently as in the countries I've just listed. But for some reason we have fallen, and we can get into why perhaps, into this very strange fragmented view of society which fragments along these very specific lines. And I'm going to finish because I'm conscious of the clock, but I just wanted to finish by saying this. What if all of this isn't making things better? What if it isn't erasing these differences? What if it isn't saying to people you can be whatever you want to be, but it's actually making these differences accentuated? It's playing off races against each other, it's playing off the sexes against each other, it's playing off sexual minorities against majorities. What if we're not doing something that's making things better, but just doing something that's making it an awful lot worse?
The left tried to present culture as a phenomenon with noble intentions, which holds people accountable for problematic behavior, but in reality, it's all about public shaming and social exclusion. By the way, subscribe for more discussions like this. One of the primary issues with cancel culture is its impact on free speech. The threat of being canceled leads to self-censorship, where individuals are unwilling to express their views for fear of public backlash or misinterpretation. This environment holds back society as the open exchange of ideas is limited. Additionally, cancel culture tends to be unforgiving, not allowing for redemption or learning from mistakes if there happens to be one in the first place. And this shows clearly when we look at the 2024 National Speech Index, where 76% of the survey respondents thought their right to freedom of speech was, quote, not at all secure or somewhat secure, and 25% believe their free speech rights are very or completely secure. Cancel culture intersects with identity politics, creating and deepening divisions within society. In its attempt not to offend, it ends up categorizing people by their identity markers, such as race, gender, and sexual orientation, therefore reducing individuals to a set of sociopathic labels, creating narratives of us versus them. This leads to hostile stances amongst different groups, turning every human interaction as a battleground for social justice, rather than opportunities for mutual understanding and cooperation. The focus on identity and personal characteristics also overshadows common human experiences and goals, leading to a fragmented society where solidarity is based on identity rather than shared values or collective aspiration.
People, some of them politicians, some of them columnists, some of them journalists, some of them neo-Nazi hooligans, are trying to silence us in speaking our truth. So I beg to differ that so-called political correctness or wokeness results in less free speech. I can safely say from my own personal experience that it seems to me that more can be said by some rather than as well as less by others in the current political climate, at least in the Netherlands. Right-wing discourse is on the rise in my home country, and on a daily basis people say the harshest things about non-binary people, women, people of color, Muslims, refugees, people with disabilities, undocumented people, basically everybody that isn't a white, male, able body of a certain age. Because you see, it's not that it is no longer allowed to say what you want to say. It's about being held accountable for what one says, taking responsibility for the words and the language that one uses. One has to be aware that words are not neutral, that they have histories and connotations, and one just cannot ignore that. Words have power, and they can reinforce systems of inequality and suppression. Thus, you can still use these words. You can still be free to speak. Yet you need to be aware of what you're saying, and that if your words are racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, well, somebody might just call you a racist, a sexist, a homophobe, or a transphobe. People will respond to it. So yes, you can say whatever you want to say. All you have to do is own your words and expect others to respond to what you're saying. So, as long as you own what you say, as far as I'm concerned, you can say anything. We can talk about anything.
That sounds like a victory speech by her, not to mention the threatening tonality of it. Sylvana is also being a racist towards white people in her sweeping generalization, whether she admits it or not. There's also the issue of labeling anyone who doesn't agree with her views into a single group, the right wing, in her own terms. Let me tell you more about this right wing. It includes a wide range of perspectives and values, from libertarian to conservative, each emphasizing different priorities and philosophies, but most agreeing on core basic values that should be protected for the sake of our societies. Painting all right-wing discourse as uniformly discriminatory against non-white males is just not true, and a failed attempt at undermining the legitimacy of valid political discussions that occur within the right wing. It's also funny to me how Sylvana's flat out asking for half the population to voice their opinion less, because how else is she supposed to push her woke agenda? The concept of critically engaging with all forms of political discourse is essential for the health of any democratic society. This doesn't mean that the racist remarks or those that incite violence should be allowed to get a pass, but recognizing the importance of the legitimate arguments and perspectives presented, dismissing broad ranges of opinions based on identity politics does not encourage this level of engagement.
Well, let me pass it back to Douglas then. Do you feel you can always speak as freely as you want to?
Let me give one very quick example. I did this on the BBC the other week, that this issue came up with this pop singer Sam Smith, who described himself as non-binary, and I got into a certain amount of trouble that didn't bother me, but because I said I don't think there's any such thing, or at least no one's explained what it is sufficiently for me to agree to it. Now, I know from feedback, including feedback in the studio from certain people at the BBC, that this is not an unpopular thing to say. I would think that if you went out to the general public and said, do you think there are people who are non-binary, and if so, can you say what they are? You'd get a fragment of 1% of people able to say that. And so my point on that is not that I've closed the argument on that, but we haven't had the argument on a whole set of things, and it seems only to be a few people who do have a voice in public who can have it.
Sylvana, you're nodding your head, not in agreement.
Because I'm always surprised that certain people feel that they need to give their okay for other people to be or think something they don't necessarily understand. It doesn't matter whether I understand the beauty of physical love between two men. There's no point. You don't need my permission to feel and act. So why does Sam Smith or anybody else who considers himself non-binary needs permission from whoever? All that is up to us is to say, if this is important to you and it does not affect me in any type of way, in any type of negative way, I'm going to respect that. People don't need your permission to be whoever they want to be.
I think it's slightly more complex than that, if I can say so.
Of course.
Let me give one reason why. Actually, the Sam Smith thing was significant. Again, sorry to go on about the BBC. The BBC's reporting of that immediately did what he asked, which was that they changed the pronouns. And some people think this isn't a big thing. Some of us do get a bit stuck on this. My point was simply that if you haven't actually had this out in public, you haven't actually discussed much of it, it's a bit strange that a major news organization would slip into saying exactly what a person had asked themselves to be described as simply because they had asked for it.
Sounds like respect to me.
It's not
nothing more, nothing less.
It's not the same thing as respect because it's something which we haven't had out. He himself said, I don't know what it means to be non-binary. So my suggestion was he should go away and think about it. And in the meantime, we shouldn't all mutilate the language to fit around him.
Why? If I come on this stage and I say to you, I would prefer for you to call me Mr. Simons, why is it a problem to you to just give me that respect?
But I'm afraid that because I care about the language, I didn't particularly want to say they was very good in their performance last night.
Well,
I'm not going to do it.
What we witnessed is a classical woke tactic of diverting the discussion into an area where they can play victim. Respect is foundational to any functional society, but it should be earned and not merely given without bias. Now, when it comes to pronouns, Sylvana is asking for people to respect Sam Smith's choice of being called with different pronouns, but it's a two-way street. By imposing the use of such language, the woke left is disrespecting the belief and values of the rest of society who don't agree with them on the topic. Also, it's not like Sam Smith saying nobody that doesn't have any influence in the world. Just checking his Instagram, he has more than 14 million followers with multiple hit songs amassing billions of views. People on the younger side idolize such celebrities and copy their behavior, so the argument of him not affecting our lives in any way does not stand on its legs. Additionally, the woke left doesn't know what it's fighting for, and they completely abandoned biology and now going for confusion when it comes to gender. Just a quick Google search on the definition of non-binary returns different definitions, so how is the rest of society supposed to conform to something that we don't have a definition of? Mandating the use of non-binary pronouns can be seen as a restriction on freedom of expression, as it basically compels individuals to speak in specific ways that may contradict with their personal conviction. I think in a pluralistic society like ours, it is crucial to balance the rights and comforts of all individuals, including those who may not accept non-binary pronouns for cultural, linguistic, or religious reasons. Respecting these differences is as important as advocating for the rights of non-binary individuals. It's also important to note that when society prioritizes not offending anyone over engaging in open and honest discussion, it risks creating an environment where superficial harmony masks underlying tensions and unresolved conflicts. I believe a more constructive approach would be allowing spaces where people can speak openly, make mistakes, and learn from them, surprisingly, to exist and ensure societal progress.